CX in the wild. First episode in Vietnam. I've been here for a week. Wrapped up the macroeconomics keynote yesterday, and I'm so excited to be here with Amalia Goux. She is a leading CX practitioner in this region. We have a mutual friend, the CEO of ICXI, Ladislau, and he put us in touch together to have this conversation, and I'm very excited to learn about CX in Vietnam. So Amalia, thank you for being here today. What we usually start this conversation out with is something very simple. Tell the audience, if you could, who you are and what's keeping you busy these days.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me here, Dennis, because I always see you on LinkedIn, so I like to see a celebrity in our field face to face. So thanks a lot for the invitation, and thanks also to Ladislau for connecting us. A few words about myself. My name is Amalia Goux. I'm Romanian. I live in Vietnam. I have a company in the last years, I decided to focus on customer experience, and I have a company on customer experience strategy. And beside this, I do a lot of other things. I wear another hat. I'm also a board member in Central and East European Chamber of Commerce. And I consider myself, like you, a CX catalyst, and I try to help people understand what is CX and spread the news about the importance of CX and having a CX strategy.
I've found in my travels in the last couple of years that I've had to unlearn a lot of things that were relevant in Western cultures, and I cut my teeth in the United States on CX in a culture that excuse me, in a culture that worked a particular way. And it was really eye-opening to me to start heading east to the Eastern cultures. And for me, tell me if you have this experience or don't, Eastern cultures seem to have a different take on how experiences work, how harmony and friction work. And I've come to believe that Eastern cultures, governments, they're I think a bit more positioned to be part of a global economic ecosystem than maybe some of the incumbent Western corporations. Or do you sense a difference between the Eastern and Western, because you sort of seen it both ways?
Definitely. I used to work for Accenture, so I was a consultant in the West, we can say, in Europe, and I am a consultant now, and I can say the game is different. The way you play the game is different, and the way people and the way businesses are connected to each other, the way consumers are buying, it's different. The way marketing is done, it's different. The way some pillars in CX, for example, the empathy, it's much higher from what I see here, and it comes naturally. Wherever in the West we have to teach more and put some guardrails in place. I also feel that here the influence and the community is very important. So in terms of marketing and consumers, one of the most important factor is the community, the group, the influence, the recommendations. So definitely it is very different. Now it depends on which layer would you like to know first. But definitely it's very different. And the mistake that many companies, global companies, let's say, or even regional companies coming here in this market, which is very localized, they try to play the game how they used to play the game in another geography, where instead you have to understand very well the local market and how people interact and everything regarding work culture and consumers, and then bring what you have from your west, from another geography, but only bring the pillars that could work and that are interesting for local market, if this makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I just was doing research. So I'm working on market experience research for 11 QSR brands in MENA, and one of the blindingly clear measurements that I saw that supports what you're saying is when it comes to just quick service restaurants, if you are in a experience where the customer is speaking English and you do a good job or a bad job, that English speaker in Dubai will tell 5 people. The same experience for someone who speaks Arabic. If you do well or you do bad, they will tell 57 other people. There's a difference in the cultures.
Yeah, definitely.
So to ignore that, to think that you can just simply reduce friction without factoring in the belief or the trust or the amplification that comes from the culture, it will change the success of your strategy or program significantly.
Definitely, and but there are also, let's say, deeper layers. This is obvious almost thing.
Yes.
Then if you go into the deeper layer, there is definitely this community influence, and there are also the deeper layers are things that you cannot see, and also you cannot Google or ask ChatGPT, from what I have noticed. So not everything that you read about Vietnamese culture, it's really how it works in reality. For example, I'm seeing from the research, it's that a lot of the consumers in Vietnam are very price sensitive, and it's very hard. And this is very hard on loyalty pillar. So it's something, it's not obvious, but we see that the Vietnamese customers, I don't know where it was first, the egg or the chicken, I don't know where it started. It's because of the consumers or the companies that are keep offering promotions and price offers and put a lot of accent and a lot of emphasis on price. But I see definitely that the consumers can and are jumping ship quite easily if there is the next offer. And we see this in banking, we see this in financial services. So we don't only talk about a grab order on a QSR restaurant.
Yeah. And to your point, whether it's the layer or the place in the experience ecosystem, because I would say you're the expert on that. But there's also the middle class of Vietnam
Definitely.
is starting to expand quickly.
Definitely.
And that's not driven by price. That's driven by preference. So let's say, because I was doing some research, and one of the things I found in when I did my keynote yesterday was that in neighboring countries, if something catches on fast there, 4 months later, here, the middle class wants to adopt it for a status. So that's not a price decision, that's a belief, or you can call it other things. But what I also think is interesting in that dynamic is, if this country loves it and Vietnam middle class sees it as a status symbol and they go for it, the idea crosses the border much faster than supply and demand. So the idea beats the supply chain to the market. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic.
Yes, it's true. So if we come back to the price discussion, it's actually the value for money. But value, it does not necessarily mean a valuable product in terms of features. It also means the status and perceived value. So definitely for me, this is the country where consumers are the most difficult in terms of value for money. If they, like you say, they maybe see something at their neighbors, and also there is a lot of influence from South Korean culture, for example, or K-pop culture. If they see something, they are definitely willing to pay, but there is this value for money component, which is like, actually, okay, I pay the price for status, but you have to deliver.
I'm going to switch the topic a little bit because you mentioned, first of all, this is my last year. So
your last year?
Yes,
Of what?
2026 is going to be my farewell tour. I'm not going to be doing this cultivation of audiences anymore after 2026. And the reason is, number one, our audience will break 1 million this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you to the audience. And I don't want to chase bigger audiences. I want to provide more value. And that means being smarter. And with the AI and the global ecosystem coming together, some of us who have experience and have seen a little bit and maybe can see where it's going a little, we've got to create content and we have to guide people to this new way of thinking, you know. And so that's where I'm going to focus. But you touched on something that really resonated with me, which is there are unnamed groups who they publish reports on, like, these are the top 10 solutions of software, or these are the top 10 companies that do this. And they plot them out in different ways, and they try to give the industry a gauge on, like, who are the companies that are moving the industry. And I have come to realize over the years that that top 10 list and the ranking is maybe influenced by how much they invest in that research report, okay? So I began doing my own research and plotting out in the same categories. I was just finishing my first report, which is I've mapped, in my own personal opinion, the top 10 CCaaS companies in the world. And I actually did the top 20 to rank them by different value, right? And so the value axes that I went off of was 3. Can you trust them? Are they can you trust them? Do they deliver? Is it like is
there friction?
No friction.
No friction?
It's just trust, product value, capacity, and basically like ease of use. Do they deliver what they say? Can you trust them, and does their product work? So 3 different axes, and I'm working on some of the language there, but what I'm really getting to is whatever we call it, could be Vietnamese words. Value, to your point, isn't necessarily price. Value is, can I trust you? Does your thing really do what you say it does?
Exactly, yeah.
And can I depend on it? Are you dependable? It could be different emotions. And so I would say I noticed even when I'm just been here on the streets, it's interesting. Value for money here is almost like a vibe. Like,
I told you.
everywhere you go, you know.
Yes, it just makes me think about your point about the middle class, because despite the fact that I work all my life in financial services and banking, um, first project when I come here due to a series of situation was a restaurant that was well, nearly going bankrupt, and I help rekindle the concept, etc. And coming back to your point about the middle class, all the classes from even the middle class are very careful in terms of value for money. Even they will go for, they will look of pho soup if it makes sense to be, okay, 20,000 more or 50,000 more, or if there is a double that the street price is, does it have quality ingredients? So value for money here, it's ingrained in all the layers, both in business and consumers. So
I'm going to agree with you there. And I don't want you to talk about anything because I'm a novice here, but I noticed that in every country that I go, so Africa as a different example.
Africa, it's a continent where I don't have a lot of experience, so I will let you talk about it.
Well, let me tell you what I learned there. Africa, if you talk to most businesses or governments, they'll say in South Africa, 50% unemployment. That's like their statement of truth. But then I go around and I shop or I walk, I buy a piece of food on the street or whatever, and I start to realize I don't see anyone in South Africa unemployed. Like every single person is doing a job and they're making money. So if the country is reporting 50% unemployment, but you see everyone working, they have 50% of a shadow economy. It's just a different, the way they transact isn't regulated over here. So there's friction, but there's also a gap, right? So that's in Africa. Back to Vietnam, to your point about the classes. It is stunning to me because I have some exposure to Vietnamese people here, and it's stunning. I'm going to exaggerate this point, but I went to buy a television set, right, for a family member, and the millions of dollars for the TV, it's like they could calculate in real time the number of pixels and the size per dollar, and they could tell you like, and then, but to your point, and then they could, it's almost like they have manufacturing knowledge, operational, and so like, yes, but this plastic, not as good quality as this plastic. And I'm like, what? Like,
this was my point that I was trying to make. I don't know if I succeed or not.
You did.
It's amazing how sophisticated the Vietnamese consumers are.
Yes.
And indeed, they look at all the details, and if they pay something, or if they buy, or if they choose, it has to actually make sense.
And
yes.
Yes, and to those details, they can spot the quality of meat, they can spot the quality of plastic, they can spot, like, I was going through the market, and I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but it's my show. You can buy things here that are like maybe a purse or a something that is, you know, let's say it may not be the exact name brand, you know, like, it's amazing to me that, this has been my experience, Vietnamese people can spot fakes instantly. Like, oh, those aren't the real shoes, that's not the real purse. That purse, the chain on that purse is not, that's not metal, that's plastic. Like, they can just see it instantly.
Yeah, and they are also amazing negotiators.
Oh yes.
There is a big trend here, or actually lately I saw it a bit less, but before COVID, where everybody was selling, let's say, the furniture of what they have in the house when you move. So there is a lot of this marketplace and peer-to-peer sale, and they can spot the smallest defect. They
Yes.
will negotiate you. They will lowball you, lower the price. It's amazing. It's something like for a Westerner who is just going and paying the price. You really need to understand how it works here. Even this is a skill I gained here. Sorry to stop you and your next idea, and it's a skill that I went here, and now wherever I go in the West I feel like negotiating everything.
So being an American, I just want fast. Like, okay, I'll take it, let's go. I went to buy a suitcase and I went to get it, I was like, all right, I'll just take it, let's go. And of course the Vietnamese person with me was like, there was like a little hinge that was like not perfectly aligned, and they were like, no, go get a different one. And then the other person was like, no, they're all like this, and then they go.
Yeah.
So I love it. To your point, sophistication of consumption or consumer has a cultural heritage that must be built. It has a vibe or a social foundation or a social, it's almost like a social education, because the consumers in Africa are very sophisticated, but in a different way. I would
in
say,
which way?
well, I'll say, like, easy example, in the United States, speed and efficiency. I think Americans are like, I can order this now and get it in 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. So value is like, how fast can I get it? One of the interesting diversifications of consumer behavior in Africa that I saw was #1 chocolate company. They sold bulk containers of chocolate powder. In the townships, they would buy a bulk of this powder. They would scoop it out in one spoonful and put it into a plastic serving, and then they would sell the servings one at a time, okay? And #1 manufacturer. Well, the #2 manufacturer watched the customer experience and just came out with a competitive product, but it was all like little bouillon cubes, like little cubes that were already wrapped. And so then the consumer switched to this, and now they're the #1, and they don't even compete really anymore because of the consumer experience. But there, the mindset is not like, is this the best chocolate, or how much does this cost? It's more like, how easily can I make money off of this product? And they break it down into transactions. Like they're very smart at how to get a lot of transactions.
Yeah, this is also a thing that characteristic on the Vietnamese market. They figured this out, I think, long time ago. You can find incredibly small quantities of things if you go in the supermarket. For example, you can buy, I think, 100 milliliter of olive oil, or everything. It's in very small package, so it's a way to sell a rather expensive product. I mean, a premium quality product, let's say, like it's olive oil, in very small packages. Everything you find, even the chocolate, I find the tiniest quantities that I ever saw here. Condiments, even bottles of water, you can find very small. Everything they sell in very small.
I'll say, and I'll make this our last topic of discussion for Vietnam. But the other thing I learned while being here is the business mentality is an ecosystem mentality. So I was at a conference for the paper and pulp manufacturers, and to listen to them diversify. So like in the United States where we might do acquisitions and mergers, I have one company and I want to get another company and another, and I get bigger, but I get efficient and I cut out the waste. And so I'm sort of growing by acquisition and by scale. Where here, they're like, oh no, this is good, but now we'll do the waste management, and maybe we'll do the chemicals, and maybe we'll do this. So they start to build ecosystems around their business rather than go after like consolidation of the markets and eating up all the other competitors. Now, I was talking to one of the CEOs about it, and I said, that's an interesting, I wouldn't have, as a Westerner, immediately thought, if I make coffee, that I should make cups and spoons and a table, you know?
Yeah.
But then he was explaining that he said you could go down to the food cart on the street and they have the same mentality. They have the food cart, but then maybe they have all the adjacent things that support their business. They invest in those, and it's an ecosystem business, an ecosystem mentality. Do you see that, or what's your take on that?
You mean by ecosystem mentality? You mean one company to provide different to take different places in the ecosystem? I'm not sure. I'm not
like if I was a food vendor and I sold. I used to work in a QSR in the United States. Let's say I'm a food vendor, I sell chicken, okay? And then what I want to do is I want to open another location that sells chicken, and then another location, and if I encounter a competitor, I'll acquire them so I can keep selling chicken. Whereas here, if I'm a restaurant and I sell chicken, well, instead of opening another restaurant, I might invest in a chicken farm. And then if I have chickens in a chicken farm, maybe, and I'm using a lot of bowls, I'll invest in a bowl company. I'll make a little bowl pottery thing. So they start to build the industry around their own business rather than keep replicating their success. Is that make sense?
Again, to each, I mean, we might have even different opinions. We might see things differently. For me, they seem quite specialized. They do, one company does one thing, but now I'm referring, most of the companies here, I think it's 95% is SMEs, small, medium enterprises, and they don't have the they don't have the access to funds to diversify. So normally there are enterprises, they do one thing for 3 generations and they do it well. Whereas the big conglomerates, if we talk about corporation, yes, then I see them diversifying on different, there is also this chicken example, like you have a chicken manufactory and then you have restaurants and then you have shops.
Yeah.
And so, but this is very for multi corporations. Because the SMEs here are mostly, many of them family-owned business. It works different. They don't have so much access to credit, SMEs in Vietnam. So I don't think they have, how I see it, yeah, it's something I didn't look deep into, but I don't see them diversifying as much. When you talk about ecosystem, I was thinking the situation that I see is I don't know, in the gold trade, or I trade gold, my sister has a jewelry shop,
yes.
My mother has,
yes.
But the ecosystem, it's not in one company, it's within a family. So the ecosystem, that's why I was thinking when you saw first, the ecosystem is the family. So I see many companies specialized on one thing, working with each other and make a kind of a brotherhood. And this I see even for very small companies, for medium, and even for big companies. Rather, ecosystem is formed by partnership here.
And this is why you are the expert here, and I'm observing that. That's exactly right. It's social economics, more than straight.
And it's very nice to see it through your eyes, because my view, it's very localized now in terms of yeah, the consumer and the market. So it's nice to see through the eyes of somebody just arriving here.
Well, thank you for that. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the world about the Vietnamese customer experience landscape? I mean, you're one of, if not the foremost expert in this market. What if you could tell the rest of the CX professionals around the world one thing about Vietnam? What would you say?
So yeah, thank you for this. Indeed, I consider myself one of the global experts here in Vietnam. There are a lot of experts working, Vietnamese experts. I consider myself one on the only on CX, yeah, that specialized, that has a global view, that has worked in many other geographies and can understand the high and lows. One thing about CX in Vietnam, there are many. One thing about CX would be, for example, in terms of scoring, instead of in terms of CX scores, I see that companies here are focused much more on the emotional scoring. So what I'm trying to say is that I see CX more the beginning here in a way. I think that the market now starts to understand what CX mean, and a big part of the market still think that it's about, okay, would you recommend this, the NPS score, the emotional scoring, how do you feel, whereas the CX strategy for me, it's about how does it land in the board, how does it land in the exco, how can we prove the value. These are just scores where we take the temperature. Then we need to look at the customer lifetime value, we need to look at churn, we need to look at economic indicators. So one thing about CX here, it would be that it still has a lot of potential. I feel that here, like anywhere, here in Vietnam, same as anywhere, CX, it's an emerging field in a way. So I feel that a lot of the people here in the companies here in Vietnam consider CX just like how the customer feels, about the experience management, we call it. So how does he feel in that particular second? Whereas I not call it the best practices, I call it the golden standard, would be to understand the long-term economic value of that CX, what a good customer experience strategy with focus on strategy it brings you. Because in the end, if I go to a bank and if I want to take a loan or any a credit card, it will not be because I had a good experience at the counter. That's why you have to think strategy, you have to think product, operations, capability, how do you service. So there is still a lot of work to be done, but it's an exciting field. Professionals now understand the importance, and I have more and more inquiries of, okay, I understand that this is important. How should I do it? Which is great. I'm so excited for it, you know?
Yes. And I would say that it takes a while for business leaders to understand that experiences define the behavior of the economics where a person or a group and a brand are concerned. If a company wants to behave in a way that improves their economic growth, or wants to behave in a way to destroy their opportunities to grow, they can. But the way to be either succeed or fail in a company's behavior has everything to do with the behavior of your consumers in the market. These behavioral economics are what the experiences that matter. And more people are starting to figure that out.
Yeah, I feel like before. Let's take retail, because I like to talk about something specifically.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it might seem too general for somebody
Yeah.
listening. For example, in retail, I heard an interesting figure when I have been to a consumer trends conference. It was last year. That, for example, in the supermarkets, and if we talk about the products on the shelf, there is a lot of innovation in Vietnam, and there was this trend to always launch new products, and 70% of the products on the shelves, they were saying, will not be there next year. It doesn't mean they will disappear completely. It's more about the same product with different flavors, different twists. But they used to focus a lot of innovation, of launching, of pleasing the consumer. And I think now we are moving to the era, or okay, let's understand this, our consumer. What does he actually want? Does he want something new, or when is he buying this? Why is he buying this? The customer insights, that it's a topic that I'm super passionate, and I could talk days about it. You know, it's this know your customer, which sounds very general, but I think more and more companies understand that they need to and when I talk customer, it can be customer, and it can also for B2B companies.
When you brought up the groceries, so how long ago were we in Brazil? Like 2 months now. 2 months ago? In Brazil? Like we were there 2 months ago, I think. We were just in Brazil, and I gave the keynote to the national retailers, and mostly groceries, for the entire country. The president was there. It was kind of a cool thing. But to your point, the shoppers shop from the grocers. The grocers shop from the suppliers. So there's this CPG B2B piece of it. And to your point, what the shopper wants is not what the grocery wants, and not what the supplier wants to sell. And in that market, the things not being on the shelf is a huge problem, because if the shopper gets accustomed to a product and the supplier can't get it there, that happens quite often, where the shopper has to go to 2 or 3 different locations just to find their item.
Yeah.
And these behaviors in different markets, they shape. So back to it, shapes the behaviors. These behaviors become requirements for the buyers, and supply chain has to restructure around this. And so it is an ecosystem. It is a lot to do with the culture and the dynamics. And I think the heritage of the economy has a lot to do with what kind of customers. Not all customers are the same. And so that's my hot take.
Course. And you have to, I think you have to, you know, strategy, it's about where to play and how to win. And first, decide where you want to play. I mean, I talk with a lot of customers, I talk with a lot of clients, so I talk with everybody on the market, and I ask, who would you like to be your customer? Who is your customer? Who would you like to sell to? Everybody. It's yeah, it's good to want to be everything for everybody, but I think companies understand that it cannot continue like this. So okay, try 3 segments, focus on this one, make a product that will wow them. It can be in retail or in financial services. Okay, if you manage to do this, take another 3 segments, and this is how you actually increase your revenue per segment. For me, customer experience, it's all about the finance. It's all about the revenue.
It's so true, because like you, I'm under NDA. So it's hard for me to speak about how to actually do it. You know, we can talk about it's important to drive revenue, lifetime value, put the right message and the right product and the right price and the right place and the time in the year. And I do a lot of research that identifies these things. But if I'm being honest, I find most CX practitioners around the world are hype and they're not really like responsible for P&Ls. Like my clients, I could do whatever I want. But when the quarterly earnings come out,
yes, of course.
I have accountability.
Yeah.
So
it's very funny that you say this because it's the second time in 2 days when one of the big CX practitioners like you are, I had the same conversation with another CX practitioner yesterday, and they were saying the same. There is a lot of hype. There is a lot of AI-made posts about how amazing CX is and the journey. And yes, my wish, I don't know about other practitioners, I kind of play my own, in my own game here, but I focus a lot on this, on the return on investment or not necessarily ROI, because in strategy, it's the investment, it's not as big, but on how to play and which segment to focus on. And I just found out yesterday that I was included on the list of top 50 global people in CX.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the amazing thing was that I was like, okay, interesting, but I don't focus on followers. I don't focus on this part of being viral. I think most of the people that I talk about strategy, I talk about how to win, I talk about client archetypes, about specific financial services. It's not for everybody, my content. And I was like, interesting, because I don't focus on this virality. And they'll say, it's because your posts and your content has substance. And I'm like, wow, it's nice that it gets through.
Yeah. Before you arrived, I was working on 20 posts, which are the truth, the fiction, and the reality, because I'm trying to create enough content that like fights against the repetitive AI best practices, which these best practices that the AI is telling you about CX, they're not even best practices. They're just regurgitated, repetitive half formulas of something that somebody was thinking and somebody else copied and said. And it's like they don't actually result in a objective, a goal, a strategy, or a measure. It's like they just like are like ideas.
Yeah, then I'm a consultant. I consider myself a consultant and not an influencer of CX. So because of this, it's very hard for me sometimes to go out there and put information and say, this is how it should be done. Because there is not this is how it should be done for me. I'm a consultant. When a client asks me a question, and it's a consultant answer, it's even a joke, it will be, probably the answer will be, it depends. And then I will ask more questions to understand which is the exact case, or we do research, or I can talk with other C-levels in the bank, for example, to understand exactly what could be the issues. I will ask the 5 whys, but why, or but what do you mean? Even I understand what they mean, but to go deeper. And only after I will take a stance. And this was the hardest point for me, to go out there and put information where like, okay, this is how it should be done. Yeah. When I could arguably argue the both sides of a debate,
Yes. To your point, truth is only as accurate as its context. And that's
context is important. It's critical.
It's critical. Well, I could talk to you forever, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on CX in the Wild.
Thank you so much for having me.
My first guest. Thank you all. We will be interviewing a few more people here. And then next up, we're headed back to Dubai. So until then, we'll see you at the next episode.